They're everywhere. I can barely hold them all. Does anybody else have this problem where you go home and there's a marker in your pocket and then it just kind of lays at home? My wife put these all together for me so I can bring them back to the shop. This is the second time this has happened. I think I bring one home with me just about every day. So I'm gonna add it back to the tub. Now we're ready for another month of use before they go back home. These are the traveling markers. Something that's really tough to do is to make your custom panels be completely symmetrical on your build. Now, when you're hand making things, it's almost impossible to make it 100% perfect. However, there is a fine line there between it being handmade and having some defects and it just being completely off. So what we're doing today is we're gonna work on the rear spoiler. Now, I have this side already roughed in. What I need to do is copy it and make the driver's side and make it completely symmetrical, because when you look at the back side of the car, it needs to look square and symmetrical. If it doesn't look symmetrical, it's not going to be aesthetically pleasing. So in this video, we're going to be covering how to make your panels symmetrical and all the different ways you could be doing that. And also we're going to cover some more sheet metal forming techniques and maybe some more tomfoolery, I don't know. Stick around. There's a pattern. There's a pattern. Oh, I labeled this one, look at that. Then I have the spoiler end here. Then we have the underside. All right, so I have my patterns here, which we made in a previous video. That saves us some time here. Part of symmetry is using either the same patterns, well, the same patterns. You wanna use the same patterns. If you have the same starting point, chances are you'll have the same finishing point, or at least you have a way higher chance of that happening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recreate every individual piece on that side, but mirrored. Now, when I made the patterns on this side, I laid tape across the clay itself. I have starting points now, and they're going to be exactly the same as this side because I literally traced this and then flipped it and made that side. And I'm going to probably start with this top center here because that's the most complex piece, and it also kind of ties it together. It's kind of like the basic starting point here. Having a precise pattern is extremely important though, because there's a thing called a buildup of tolerances. If I were to generalize an edge, like, yeah, it's approximately here and approximately there, that's going to build up over time. So if I started in tape and then I made it out of steel and then I maybe didn't quite oversize enough in the steel or whatever, it'll bite me in the long run because I don't have enough material or whatnot. So it's important to be as precise as possible without wasting too much time. And that is a fine line that you're gonna spend your whole life trying to figure out.
No
this
worries.
guy's still always in the way. Yeah, punk. Yeah, what do you want? Hey, he's come back. Run. That audio needs to be used when I jump. So it's like Mario's like that. Always oversized. Always oversized. Yeah, so I originally made this in clay to figure out our design. We know our design. Now it's in the way, so now I gotta rip it off. Maybe I can just get away with just like, oh my gosh. Oh, here we go. Somewhat. You'll have that. So much hard work. Take some solvent to that. This clay is oil-based, so solvent will just lift it. I'm not worried about getting this perfect because, well, it's gonna get removed. I mean, we're gonna make this, all this steel is going to be replacing this, so it's not a huge deal. I'll tell you what, that metal right here, that's pretty sharp. This is not one of those things you'll have on these jobs. We're gonna start with the bead roller to tip the center feature line, which means I gotta change these dies out. Here, now I have a nice line here that's for braking. That's gonna kind of lock that in for later. All right, it's hammer time. What's very important with doing any kind of mallet work on a sandbag is it moves extremely easy. So you want to only use just enough force to move it, and you can kind of massage it into place. You don't want to do heavy hits and space them out. You want to have consistent little pats. So you can see like I have dimples here, but they're relatively consistent. The more consistent they are, the easier it's going to be to planish those out so they're not there anymore. I need to make sure that this shape is symmetrical and it's consistent the whole way across, because this is a straight piece across the whole backside of the car. It needs to be consistent. There are multiple ways to do this, and one of the very, very handy ways is a tool we can use called a contour gauge. But it's also called like a profile gauge. Different websites call them different things. You can get them off like Eastwood, or I think Harbor Freight might even sell them too. I'm not sure on that. So the way this thing works is, it is like a rack that has a bunch of little fingers on it, right? And I can take these fingers and I can push it down, and it'll imprint the shape or whatever I need in a very rough fashion, but close enough that you can use this data then to replicate. I'm gonna go from the edge of the line here, approximately, I'm gonna go straight down, and then I'm gonna go on the back here with my thumb and kind of just make sure all these little fingers seat nicely onto the profile of this. So this right here is the profile that I need on that panel that's laying on the ground. And I know that from this point is that Sharpie line right here at this edge, which I also have marked on there. Line it up on that Sharpie line and then know exactly what needs the curve. Pretty neat, huh? There we go. Now we got our profile. So this is starting to move how I'd like it to. So this center line here, we have not stretched at all aside from putting a bead in it, right? But we've stretched this side and stretched this side, meaning there's more material pushing out, which is allowing this to do a nice reverse curve upwards. As you can see, it's starting to curve up.
I think this should be the new look, so we're gonna have to go back and redo everything.
This is quite the boxy.
That's very boxy on a round car.
Friend dropped this off as a gift.
He did say ours was cooler, so.
What do you think? Did we do it wrong? Should we have gone this way? It does kind of remind me of the Koenig. The ward goes into the door here. The Koenig special
I
has
like
that.
the cut off at the rockers. Like it's
This
like
here?
they forgot.
Yeah, they're like,
Yeah.
It's like any other body, man. It's like, if it's like at ankle height, it's not worth the effort, so we're just gonna skip it. Another relatively simple and maybe even cavemanish method for checking for symmetry. Pick a feature in the car that has not been modified that's symmetrical already. And then I'm going to look at what I made from side to side and look for any differences in how it overlaps with the original body. So there's gonna be like visually, say, 1/2 inch difference between this and this peak side to side. I wanna make sure it's the same on that side, which it is. Just simple checks along the way that'll save you a headache down the road. Now, that's not a perfect science, and I think everybody's calculated eye is a little different. So that's something you can pick up along the way. If you keep doing this over and over and over again, you pick up little things that can help the symmetry fall in place. Okay, so I have this, we'll call it the spoiler end, roughly fabricated. It fits decently. What I'd like to do next is go across the entirety from here to here and kind of just level out this flange, because this flange I just oversized and I didn't really pick a width I wanted yet. I'm gonna use the width of this tape we had in the back of a cabinet. I don't even know where this tape came from. It's a really awkward size. And then after that, I can kind of fine tune any kind of deviations I don't like. I went through and I took the bluing and blued the edge so we could see it a little bit better. It kind of melts in with everything else with it being silver. Now that I have it trimmed back, and I have this on here. I can see the waves. We're gonna get rid of those waves. This is the fun part. But this needs to happen before we do the underside because I want the panels to fit nicely and not be made to fit waves. These are also a profile or a contour gauges, whichever you want to call it. This one is ginormous, and I very rarely use it, but there's times I have. This one I use a lot, especially for like wheel arches. In fact, I think there's a wheel arch saved on it right now. So the way this profile gauge works is you have these little knobs that tighten down on these tracks, right? You start off by loosening them enough that they can kind of grab and hold, like retain memory, but still slide freely, so I can put shape into it and then lock them down. You can see in this one, I have tape that I marked different measurements, say it's the edge of a wheel arch, and that's a body line. I recommend using tape to mark things because then repeatability is key. Look, we're done. Just shove this in here a little bit. This was the I want to go home and try again tomorrow panel, but I didn't go home. I got it. So this is especially tough because between here and here, there's a very soft radius that this entire shape needs to curve along. And then at this point, it breaks over and has a sharper radius on both sides. Doing the sharper radius was a lot more complicated than I thought. Well, I knew it'd be complicated, but better than a bunch of pie cuts and a bunch of filler, right?
I mean, the nice thing is, since you already did one side, this side was really easy.
That's not how that usually works, actually.
Yeah.
You would think that doing something once and getting it to look nice is like, oh, it's got to copy that. Well,
That's the problem.
That's
you gotta
the
copy
problem.
it. Did you know that scientists discovered that the key to a beautiful person is symmetry?
I did know that, actually.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If you look at any beautiful person, their face is symmetrical.
Why they
When
got
they're
so
not, people find them less attractive. And it's the same thing with cars. We're gonna have to do something with these taillights and the front turn signals.
Yeah, I gotta make a whole fender on the driver's side yet. I gotta actually weld the panels to the car. We have a whole interior to do yet. Yeah, there's a lot coming up on this build, so make sure you check back every week because there's more coming. Also, thanks guys for the big influx of likes, comments, subscribers in the past couple weeks. We've grown substantially, so keep sharing.